Okay. One of the things about SADAFA is that we get a lot of different people with a lot of different retirement concerns. And so that's what is the basis of this talk. I do have to give the disclaimer, we are not financial advisors. That we're just, like we said, adjuncts helping adjuncts, sharing information. And we've had a lot of people with a lot of different experiences about retirement. So take what we're giving you as your basics, and then you can formulate your questions for your own financial advisors. First thing is that I find that our adjuncts tend to belong to one or more of these three retirement groups. CalSTRS is the most common one. Their website is calstrs.com. Social Security, that's kind of a pet peeve of mine because I've heard so many, especially contract people, say, well, teachers can't collect Social Security. That's totally wrong. I will show that to you. And that's their website. And then CalPERS, and I'll go into that a little bit later, but CalPERS is one that a lot of our people belong to. I'm having problems with what I'm showing here. As far as, there we go, now it's out of the way. Okay, so on the three of them, there's places where you can go and find out if you even belong to the group. So My CalSTRS is a button to push or check when you're in the CalSTRS website. Social Security actually has one called My Social Security. You need to log into that. And CalPERS has one. All three of them are retirement pension systems. And so just to let you know, CalSTRS has a part of it that's savings plan, but basically the three plans are retirement pensions. CalSTRS is based on your service years credit, and I emphasize that is not a calendar year. It's service years, and I'll talk about that later. Social Security is based on calendar year or calendar quarters, and CalPERS is on service year credit, not calendar year. CalSTRS, we vest at 5 years of that are service years. And I'll tell you, when I first started way back when, they were messing around with how they credited our service. And so it took me forever. And now it's a little bit more, you don't get full credit. Maybe you do. We'll talk about that. Social Security vests once you have 10 years in paying into Social Security or 40 quarters. That's something when I hear people say, well, the political statement that the illegal immigrants are coming here to the United States and collecting Social Security, big lie. You have to pay into it for 10 years or 40 quarters. And I've actually known people here that thought it was cute to hide their money, not report anything, not pay income tax, cash only, and they never met it to 10 years. CalPERS, you vest at 5 years service. And just a note on CalSTRS, a 60% load. If you're teaching that, then you get 60% of a service year. Continuing that comparison, yes. The minimum retirement year, according to CalSTRS, is 55 years old with 5 years service credit. I'm going to tell you, take these things with a grain of salt because laws are always changing. Social Security typically is 62 years old. You have to be 62 before you can collect it. CalPERS, depending on when you hired into the CalPERS system, it's either 50 or 52. Full retirement age, CalSTRS, depending on your birth date, they say it's either 63 or 65. Social Security, they've been changing their law, and so I retired when it was 66. Now it's up to 67. And then CalPERS just has 62 listed. Can you work after retirement? This is one of the fun parts of being an adjunct. Under CalSTRS, adjuncts can keep teaching. It won't increase our benefit, but it'll keep a good income stream going. Social Security, yes, you can keep working. Now, I had a employer one time that told me that the longer he worked, it kept adding to his benefit. I do not know that for a fact. And then CalPERS specifically will not allow you to work after retirement, unless you have board of supervisors approval or something. Anyway, just figure if you're under CalPERS, you're not going to keep working. Let me get my mouse working. At what age does it make sense to go ahead and retire? Now, I collect Social Security based on my 30 years working as an accountant. In my mind, I kept putting it off until I was 70 because I had read that for every year you put it off, you get another 8% increase in your benefit, your monthly benefit, the longer you put it off. Well, it turned out when I actually went to retire and I was close to 70, the lady I talked to on the phone said, you could have claimed it at 68, and that would have been your maximum. Now, I'm not going to tell you which one's right. You're going to have to find out for yourself. But her point was, I waited beyond and it didn't do me any good. She dated my retirement date to the 68. The point here is that we have so many dates going around in our brains and what we have read, what we've been told, and any plan that you have, there's different dates. So rules change, the factors change, everything changes. So sometimes you just need to call them up and find out what applies to you and your particular information, your birth date, your hire date, etc. Now, I'm a strong believer in waiting till as late as you can. But there are several people that started collecting Social Security at 62, and they had very valid reasons. For instance, somebody that's living and working in an area that's been hit really bad with the economy, a lot of those people had to go ahead and start collecting at 62, even though it meant it was going to be lesser, but it was because they needed the money. And there's other reasons for retiring at 62 in Social Security. CalSTRS, what's the oldest you should be if you can put it off? You can retire from CalSTRS, collect a pension, and keep teaching. So you're retiring on paper, but not from teaching. And many of us do that. In fact, SADAFA is why we know we could, because we had one of our first workshops we put on was CalSTRS. And that's where we found out that adjuncts could keep working. I just met a lady that said she hadn't retired yet because she couldn't afford it. And it's like, no, because second bullet here, if you go ahead and retire under CalSTRS, you start collecting your pension. You no longer have the STRS payments taken out of your paycheck, which for me was $300. That added to my take-home pay, and you have your income from teaching. You're limited to working at a CalSTRS employer to not making over a certain amount. And I believe the latest is $50,000 a year. But I have to tell you, as an adjunct that only teaches at one school, I've never made anything close to 50,000. But on the other hand, when you guys registered and could list questions, there was one person that is teaching at more than one school already, and they say they do make over 50,000. So that would be something they'd have to take into consideration. Also, you need to talk to a CalSTRS representative to see if it does you any good to keep working or go ahead and retire. Your basic formula under CalSTRS is your service credit. Remember, that's not calendar year, times an age factor, times your final compensation. That is what's going to determine your pension. And I love the fact that we get the pension, we're still teaching as long as they're giving us classes, and I no longer have STRS taken out of my paycheck. That's helped me. Service credit is not calendar time. If you teach a 60% load at the district, you should receive a 60% service credit for that year from CalSTRS. Now, I hired in at 82, and those first few years, they were playing a lot of games with the adjuncts. The district was, not just our district, all the districts. First, they said we weren't eligible to belong to STRS at all because we were an adjunct. But the other thing they did was they'd take, like I was taking a 60% load, that's 9 units at that time. And instead of dividing by 15 to say you have a 60% load, they were dividing it by a 40-hour week and turning it in that way. Well, STRS knows that happened. And so they have built in a way to counteract it when they figure out what our pension is. So if you are one of those early people like I was, just bring that subject up to them. The most service credit you can get in any 1 year is 100%. Now, if you work at more than one district and the total service credit is over 100%, then the excess is deposited by CalSTRS into their savings plan. Look at the CalSTRS website and talk to a CalSTRS representative about that. But that's why when you go into My CalSTRS, you'll see defined benefit and some numbers, and then you'll find a savings plan with some numbers. I taught at Grossmont for like a year and a half, 2 years, and it was just enough to make up for those stupid things they were doing about the 40-hour week. So I got a full year of credit, I think 1 or 2 years in a row, and that just pushed me over to that 5 years required vesting. But it pushed me over 1, and that extra little percentage or 15% or whatever went into the savings plan. So it benefits you to work for more than one district, not only because it increases your service credit up to the maximum of 100% per year, but it also increases your earnings. Now, what are the CalSTRS factors? Final compensation for CalSTRS is your highest average annual compensation earnable over a period of 36 consecutive months. Those are school year months, not calendar months. Now, notice I copied this right from CalSTRS website, and notice he says earnable. I'm not going to promise this to you, but when I was sitting there and the guy was working out my pension, earnable was a little math magic that they do that says, well, you were working part-time, but if you had been working full-time, this is what your earnings would have been. So that's what they mean by earnable. Okay, increasing your benefit. You can increase your retirement benefit by increasing any part of the formula, your service credit, your age factor, or your final compensation. For example, you can increase your service credit by working more years, or the other thing that they advised us in one of the meetings was eliminate your lowest paid assignment and talk to a CalSTRS representative about that, because remember, it's your highest average compensation. And when they say a period of 36 months, I don't believe it has to be the last 36 months. It can be any consecutive 36 months in your entire career. So sometimes if you're starting to get fewer and fewer assignments, maybe go ahead and retire under STRS and keep teaching. Again, I keep repeating this, talk to a CalSTRS representative, but when you're going to go talk to them, have all your information available to you. Have already looked up your CalSTRS, My CalSTRS, have your information as far as when did you start teaching, things like that, stuff that will help them answer your questions. And then I love the fact that they, on their website, have a member handbook. That is to your advantage to log that, to download that and look it up. Read it, spend some time with it. Okay, STRS and Social Security. Many of us paid into Social Security as we worked our way through college before we started teaching, or as a second or third job in addition to teaching, or when we had no classes and had to find work. I talked to a gentleman the other day that He's got Social Security from one of his employers. It was a teaching one, and I think it was San Diego State, paid into Social Security and CalPERS while he taught, as opposed to the high school district that only paid into STIRS. So there's a lot of different reasons why many of us have Social Security. Well, a lot of you have worked at other districts. My second job was as an accountant. So I paid into Social Security for over 30 years. Others of you, you may not think you have any, but remember, go to My Social Security and find out if you've got the minimum 10 years or 40 quarters, because that's the minimum you need to qualify for any Social Security benefits, no matter how little. Now, WEP is based on significant, that's windfall elimination provision. One of those wonderful laws they put in, I think Ronald Reagan did it. He didn't like double dippers. So he said, if you're working for a retirement system instead of Social Security, then this windfall elimination provision comes into being. And it's based on your significant earnings. You might lose up to 50% of what would have been your Social Security benefit. Okay, you have to go and do the research. I'll talk about it in a minute, a little bit more, but that's the basics. GPO, governmental pension offset. This one is really dirty trick. If you're in a situation without a teacher, if you were a normal person, shall we say, that's not collecting a teacher's pension, and you could collect Social Security as a spouse or a widow, you can't do that if you get a STIRS pension. I have one friend that she's retired as a teacher. She's a widow. She can't collect from her spouse because she's got her STIRS pension. So it's a dirty trick. And let me find where my slide is. There we go. All right. Page 2 of Social Security and WEP. Nothing is deducted from your CalSTRS pension based on you collecting Social Security. I cannot believe, getting ready for this, in the past month, I have had 3 different people argue with me that they don't want to collect their Social Security because it will reduce their STIRS. And that is so wrong. And all 3 of them, when I tried to reason with them, no, it doesn't affect your STIRS at all. Oh, yes, it does. And no, that's not true at all. They only affect your Social Security benefits. Okay, now, this next little bit is a little trick I've learned from a couple adjuncts. Check with a financial advisor to see if this is good for you. Remember, I told you the minimum age to collect Social Security is 62. Okay, so what a few of them have done is they started collecting their full Social Security benefits at 62. Even they totally ignored WEP, they totally ignored GPO. Didn't matter if they were the employee or the spouse. They started collecting at 62 and did not apply for CalSTRS until 70, because it isn't until you start collecting CalSTRS that WEP or GPO will kick in and your Social Security will be reduced. And again, check with a financial advisor on that one. But that's what we have been told by several people that are doing this. Now, what difference does that make? Well, if under WEP your Social Security wasn't that big and you're going to be cut down to like $350, but full-time it would have been $1,000. Hey, get that $1,000 for the years between you're 62 years old and you 70. Money's money. And then the other thing we advise, several people gave you different associations that we belong to. There are 2 in particular that are really fighting to get WEP and GPO totally eliminated. One of them is an organization called Social Security Fairness, and the other one is CalRTA, California Retired Teachers Association. both of them, if you want to join their fight, get on their email list, and every week they say, hey, these are the legislators in Congress to contact to get these eliminated. And considering we've got certain legislators that think nobody should even get Social Security, it's a battle, but they are making progress. Hang on, I got my mouse is rebelling. I think it's got broken wire or something. Come on, you can do it. I can see it bouncing around. There we go. Now you're in the right place. Okay. Adjunct still working after CalSTRS. Our suggestion, retire on paper from CalSTRS and then keep teaching. That way you receive both your CalSTRS pension and your paycheck from teaching. That's what I'm doing. When you do that, and this is funny, this is where SADAFA has had a definite influence on the district. Make sure that you tell the district, your school, your dean, everybody that you intend to keep teaching. What we had to do was when we retired, we had to write on every single page, we'll keep teaching, we'll keep teaching, we'll keep teaching. And when I saw the latest form, they now have a square. If you're an adjunct, check if you're going to keep teaching or not. So we've had some influence there. Now, a lot of people hear about a thing called the 180-day rule. And the common meaning of it is you can't teach for 180 days after you retire. But that's not quite the way it works for us as adjuncts who have looked into it. It means you can't collect a pension and a paycheck for those first 180 days. So I know some adjuncts that they were in a good situation. They were ready for a long trip to go visit relatives. So they just took the 180 days off, long overdue vacation. Others, like me, we know the pension is going to be affected. And so what happens is either CalSTRS finds out about it and they're going to send you what looks like a nasty letter saying, hey, you're working and you're collecting a pension and you can't do that and you've got to give all that money back. Well, in my case, I said, that's fine. So they just suspended the pension payments for the 180-day rules. I didn't have to write them a check. On the other hand, one of the teachers that I had told him about this, he just put the money when they sent the pension to him, he just put it in a separate bank account, and when they said, you got to pay it back, he wrote them a check. No big deal. So do not panic about the 180 days. It just depends on, how you want to handle it, but it's not a big deal. Yes, it's there, it's real, but it's not a big deal. Experience about working after retiring in the San Diego Community College District with our AFT Guild 1931 contract. And this is to answer a couple questions that I have heard and saw when you registered. Number one, we keep our POA, priority of assignment. We keep it. As long as we keep on teaching, we've still got the priority of assignment. If we had health benefits before we retired, we keep them as long as we still have the teaching load. I finally lost mine when we were closed for COVID because they worked out a little side agreement that we could have it for 18 months. Well, after 18 months, I lost them because I didn't have any classes. And so then I switched over to Medicare. Whatever was deducted for our STRS deduction from our paychecks is no longer taken out. That means our take-home pay increases. And I think in my case, it was like $300 a month that used to be taken out. Now I've got $300 more to spend. Retiring from STRS, this is the biggest reason. It relieves a lot of stress. I chose to retire from STRS when they had been cutting back classes and they were threatening to cut them back even more. So I went ahead and retired from STRS, so I knew I had that guaranteed pension coming in. And if I got to teach, which I was still teaching, turned out I was still teaching my regular load, that was nice, have both of them. Right now I taught 2 accounting classes this semester. I'm only gonna have 1 next fall, and according to our school meeting this morning, they're cutting a lot of classes next fall at Mesa College. So retiring from STRS, if you can afford it, if you meet the criteria and everything, it relieves that stress. Because otherwise you're in a panic. Oh no, what am I going to do if I don't get any classes? In my case, I still have my pension. CalSTRS and CalPERS. Now this one's interesting. Some of us paid into CalSTRS as teachers, but we also paid into CalPERS from other employment, such as clerical jobs. Apparently there are some schools around here that their teachers pay into CalPERS instead of CalSTRS. And I have a friend that works for one of the little cities in town that she pays into CalPERS. And so there are some of us that have both. Okay. If you do belong to both and you are ready to retire from one, it's real important that you retire from the other one on the same day. Now, the world will not come to an end if you don't, but if you can, and this is on paper that you're saying this is my retirement date, it's how CalPERS calculates your pension, and it's to your advantage. The CalPERS website has a really good discussion about it. And basically what they do is they look at your earnings under STRS and your earnings under PERS that they're going to use for the calculation. And if the STRS one was higher, they use it for the calculation. I'm not swearing to it. I'm just saying go to the CalPERS website and read their discussion about it. If you've already retired from CalPERS, don't worry. The world's not going to come to an end. Okay? It's just a little trick that if you can time it right, it's to your advantage. Now, little tidbit down here. CalSTRS will let us keep teaching after retirement. CalPERS will not, unless there's some rare exceptions. I was having a happy little career doing substitute clerical work and getting CalPERS for it. And it would have taken a special vote by the school board to authorize that for me to keep on doing that under CalPERS. So that's why it's easier just to say it doesn't allow it. And let's see which one I'm on. There I am. Okay, now, those are pension plans. And then people ask, well, what about Apple and Pear? This is all I could find out. The Pear plan was the Grossmont Community College District. They're the ones that had the Pear plan. And when I look it up on the internet, it's as if they were the only ones. It was an investment type program, and it has been transitioned from the Grossmont Cuyamaca District to the San Diego County Schools. And their quote was these 2 different compensation plans, retirement savings plans. Now, if you have any requests that you want to make to transfer the money, withdraw it, anything like that, here's an email address for their desk. There's a fax number, how you can process it. And I also found this TSA deferred compensation information number for them. Notice they're both 725 numbers, so I'm sure they're the same office. And they're, from what I understand, they are the ones that are on Linda Vista Road, south of Mesa College, is where the San Diego County Schools is located. And there is somebody there that can tell you if you've got any of these other plans, is there anything you can do with them as to rolling them over or putting them into an IRA or anything like that. Contact them. And let's see down here. It's a profit sharing or deferred compensation plan for district employees not covered by STRS, CalPERS, or Social Security, and it's administered by Keenan and Associates. And I have heard from a lot of adjuncts that when they hired in, they were told, no, you can't belong to STRS because you're an adjunct. Here, join Apple instead. And we don't know if that was true or not. From what I understand, they were lying to us. But sometimes they aren't lying on purpose. They just don't know. Like when I hired in, I was told point blank, no, you can't join because you're a part-timer and part-timers don't get any benefits whatsoever. And at the time I was on the board of directors for Lakeside Fire District, and the firefighters are the ones that told me that is wrong. They have to put you in CalSTRS. You go down there and talk to them. So with their encouragement, I went down, found the desk in what was being called human resources, and I would not leave that desk until that person put me into CalSTRS. Unfortunately, there's a bunch of people that believed what they were told and ended up with Apple. Now, the deductions are lower for Apple than any of the others because the combined employer-employee contribution is 7.5% of compensation, which means you're also ending up with a lot less money than you would have if you were in STRS. I think our combined is like 12% or something, but anyway, it's much more. It is automatically 100% vested. The website, I am told, according to what I found on the internet, is mymidamerica.com, employers, etc. And that distribution, when you want it out of there, can either be lump sum or rolled over into an IRA. And that's a mistake somebody made years ago. They took money out of one of these plans and did not know to roll it over to an IRA, and they ended up paying a huge income tax on it. And seems to me there was one other there, Medicare. All right. This isn't retirement. This is Medicare, medical benefits. Okay, so before you were retiring under our AFT contract, you had health benefits because you were teaching a 40% load or a 50% load. For a long time, it was 50%. I think they've changed it to 40 now. But as long as your workload keeps you eligible, even if you retire from the district, as long as you're still working at the district and maintain that load, you still can keep your health benefits. I kept mine for several years until, like I said, under COVID, I finally was unemployed long enough that I lost them. Now, Medicare is an alternative for us after we retire for two reasons. Well, actually, two situations. If you lose your health benefits or you never had health benefits. Now, if you're the age where you can start being in Medicare, which is what, 65, you can join Medicare. And if you are transferring over from having health benefits to Medicare, several of us were on Kaiser. We're still on Kaiser. No big deal. A couple of the things have changed, like I now have to pay a copay once in a while. But there's also employee or adjuncts that never had any health benefits to begin with. They never qualified, but they're old enough for Medicare now. So what we have found out from presentations we organized, stuff and put on about Medicare, is that VEBA is the provider for just about all of the school districts in San Diego County. So whether you had your health benefits before or not, to go on Medicare, you find out, did you work for a VEBA employer? Okay. Did they get their health benefits from VEBA? San Diego Community College District does. And I believe at least two of the other community college districts in the county do. So you can go to VEBA and ask them about joining Medicare. And then that way you utilize their group rates. And, group rates are almost always better. So call them. And what I have in my notes is you ask for the VEBA Post 65 desk. The long name, VEBA Post 65 Retiree Plan, Member Services. Here's their phone number and here is their website. And just let them know what school district you were at and that you're interested in going on Medicare. Okay, that's my last slide.